the chaos inside your head. Why do you care about so much bullshit? Have you ever stopped to think about how much useless stuff takes up space in your mind? People you don't like, deadlines that no one will remember a week from now. The opinion of that cousin who thinks starting a business is just like opening a burger joint, the number of likes on your latest post, all of this living rent-free in your brain. And the worst part? Not even paying property taxes. Montaigne, an old, bearded Frenchman who lived in a castle with a massive library, had already figured this out centuries before we started drowning in notifications. He realized that most human suffering doesn't come from the real world, but from the mental reality show we watch 24/7 without commercial breaks. You know what his plan was? Nip it in the bud. Stop giving importance to things that don't matter. It's radical, right? But it works. The problem is, we live as if everything is personal. If your crush doesn't reply, you think you're not good enough. If your boss doesn't praise you, you think you're a failure who'll never get promoted. None of this is actually about you. It's your ego, that narcissistic drama queen, turning every little detail into Shakespeare. And spoiler alert, Montaigne would call that stupidity wrapped in vanity. The truth is, caring too much is just another form of being self-centered. Think the world is judging you all the time? Everyone else is too busy judging themselves. Think people will laugh if you mess up? Maybe, but only for 5 minutes, then they go back to worrying about their own hair or their bills. Want an example? Let's talk about social media, that amusement park of anxiety. You post a photo, spend the day checking for likes, interpreting silence as rejection, and stewing because so-and-so liked what's-his-name's post, but didn't like yours. If Montaigne saw this, he'd laugh in your face and go back to drinking wine. Because while you're wasting brain cells on digital vanity, he was focused on understanding why the hell human beings are so unhappy with themselves. So, here's a tip. Want to start making things work? Filter what gets into your head, literally, like a nightclub bouncer at the door. If the idea isn't useful, true, or necessary, block it. Oh, but that might seem cold? No, it's mental hygiene. Instead of caring about the opinions of the whiners, how about caring about what you think when you look in the mirror? Instead of giving a platform to baseless criticism, how about focusing on what you want to do? Even if it seems strange to those living on autopilot. At the end of the day, the equation is simple. The more emotional baggage you carry, the less room you have to be free. And Montaigne didn't give a damn about any prison other than the one in his own mind. It's time for you to think about doing the same. The art of sitting and watching the circus burn down, of sitting and watching the circus burn down without getting singed. Picture it. The world is on fire. People are freaking out. Drama exploding in WhatsApp groups, toxic meetings at work, social pressures, family drama, fights with your partner. And there you are, coffee in hand, a blank expression and an armored soul. Not because you're unfeeling, but because you've learned Montaigne's secret. Just because the circus is on fire doesn't mean you have to become a clown. That's what we're talking about here. Stop sticking your nose into everything. Stop thinking you need to solve, opine on, suffer through, or participate in every emotional catastrophe that crosses your path. Because guess what? You don't have to. Montaigne was practically the patron saint of selective wisdom. The guy literally locked himself in a tower to think. That's right. While the world was spiraling down with the bubonic plague, religious wars, and medieval politics reeking worse than rotten cheese, he was doing his own thing, philosophizing about life, death, and why no one can stand being alone with themselves in silence. In other words, while the world loses its mind, you observe without losing your peace, without playing the game. You know what the problem is today? Everyone wants to have an opinion on everything, get involved in everything, be right about everything. And that's a VIP invitation to a mental breakdown. You don't need to win every argument. Save everyone from the abyss, or, least of all, try to fix the chaos. And often, chaos didn't even ask for your help. Want a more modern example? Go to a meeting where a colleague starts spewing venom. Usually, your instinct is to fire back, defend your point, prove something. But Master Montaigne whispers in your ear, just let it be, just observe. And sometimes that is more powerful than any retort, because those who thrive on conflict need an audience. If you don't take a seat in the stands, the show doesn't happen. And that isn't apathy, it's strategy. The art of not burning out begins when you realize the world will always be in crisis. Always. If it's not a pandemic, it's inflation. If it's not a jerk of a boss, it's an existential crisis. And if you let yourself get sucked into all of that, you'll live in crisis mode forever. Montaigne taught with subtle irony that we are ridiculously vulnerable and that taking everything seriously is the fastest route to insanity. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is sit in your imaginary tower, read a good book, and let the gladiators kill each other in the social arena. So the next time the circus catches fire, take a deep breath and ask, does this require action, or is it just another spark trying to grab my attention? Because staying calm in a hysterical world isn't weakness. It's a superpower. Existential crisis? Congratulations, you're alive. If you're wondering what the point of it all is, did I choose the right career? What if I'm never truly happy? Welcome to the club. You aren't broken, you're just lucid. The truth is, if you've never had an existential crisis, you're either a robot or too drugged up to realize you're alive. Montaigne understood that doubting, questioning, and getting lost aren't signs of weakness. They're signs of intelligence, of sanity. Only those who allow themselves to step off autopilot look into the abyss and say, okay, what the hell is this? Society, of course, hates that kind of lucidity. Crisis? No, buddy. Here, take this productivity course, a dose of self-esteem tea, a positive mantra to recite while your soul collapses. But Montaigne would tell you the opposite. Dive into the void. Go ahead and feel it, because running from the crisis means running from your humanity. Want to see how this applies in practice? People today are obsessed with purpose. Everyone wants to live meaningfully, impact the world, leave a cool legacy, but nobody wants to deal with the emptiness that comes before that. Everyone wants a GPS for life, but nobody accepts the fact that sometimes there is no route, and that's okay. An existential crisis is actually your internal system saying, this version of you has run its course. Let's just update things. The problem is that instead of listening, you rush toward distraction. You know what Montaigne used to do? Whenever he felt that existential unease, he would write. He would observe himself and lay himself bare without shame. He knew that ignoring the crisis was like plugging a leak with chewing gum. It might look like you fixed it, but at some point, it's going to blow up in your face. Another thing, stop thinking you'll emerge from the crisis with a spiritual guru diploma. Crises are chaotic, ugly, and messy. You aren't going to find nirvana-like peace there. There, you will encounter versions of yourself you never wanted to face, and you will have to decide what to do with them. Montaigne would say, accept it, live with it, because if you want to live a real life, you'll have to dance with your demons, not just post photos showing off your best qualities. And you know what happens when you stop fighting the crisis and start learning from it? You grow. Without the sugary self-help, without a 12-step booklet, without a 40-second YouTube video promising to master life. You grow because you understand that you're not alone, that everyone carries this existential void, and that sometimes all you can do is laugh at your own tragedy, have a coffee, and move forward. To sum it all up, an existential crisis isn't a sign of defeat, it's a sign of awareness, of presence, of being alive. So, the next time the blues hit, instead of looking for a distraction, do like Montaigne. Pull up a chair, stare into the void, and say, all right, sit down and let's talk. Other people's opinions. The gilded cage where you lock yourself away. You know that cheesy advice about not caring what others think? Well, it only became a cliché because no one can actually follow it. Talk is cheap. What's hard is posting an unfiltered photo saying no without trying to please anyone, or admitting you like listening to *sertanejo universitario, and screw the Spotify cool crowd. If Montaigne had Instagram, he'd probably have about 3 followers and 0 posts. Why? Because he was too busy being honest with himself. No curating his personality just to get a virtual pat on the back. The guy wrote about his own weaknesses, fears, and doubts, without a shred of shame. Because he knew one simple, brutal truth. When you live to impress others, you cease to exist. And no, it's not an exaggeration. Just look around. How many of your life's decisions were based on what you actually wanted, and how many were made just to avoid disappointing someone, being judged, or looking small? If you do the math right, you'll realize you're living a life you aren't even sure is yours. Take, for example, that college degree you chose because it brought status, that relationship you stayed in or still stay in, just because everyone says it looks good on paper, or that job you hate but keep because it wouldn't look good to quit now. That isn't maturity. It's a decorated prison. The truth is, other people's opinions are like cheap perfume. If you stay near them too long, you start thinking the scent is your own. Montaigne got this when he realized that trying to please everyone is a guaranteed investment in frustration. No matter what you do, someone will always think it's crap. And the most liberating part? That's not your problem. Oh, but I can't ignore what people will think. Of course not, because since childhood, you've been trained to seek approval as if it were oxygen. Teachers, schoolmates, Instagram, everyone shaping your behavior based on, don't embarrass yourself. The result? An adult full of social anxiety, trying to appear confident while dying inside. Montaigne would respond to that with a yawn. He used to say the best way to live well is to know yourself, to accept yourself with all the mess, all the contradictions, and all the shame that comes in the package. Because only then do you free yourself from the need for validation. And when you stop begging for applause, you start making choices that are more authentic and, ironically, more respected. So the question is simple. Are you living your life or playing a character? To earn a gold star for good behavior. If you want to escape this prison, the first step is to open the cell door. The second is to stop thinking that other people's gaze is a mirror. And the third? Well, that's when you start living. Death is certain, the rest is negotiable. No beating around the bush. You're going to die, and I'm going to die. Everyone you know is going to die. And no, that's not too heavy a topic to discuss. It is simply the most democratic and certain fact of existence. The problem is that most people live as if this were just a rumor, like a system glitch that can be fixed with a diet, meditation, and lemon water. It can't. Montaigne was obsessed with death, not in a morbid way, but a philosophical one. He wrote about it the way one writes a letter to oneself, a reminder that time is finite, that life slips through our fingers, and that pretending we can control everything is humanity's cruelest joke. And that's where things get interesting. When you accept that death is inevitable, everything else becomes a bonus. And a bonus, my friend, doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be lived. We walk around with an invisible list of things that must happen for life to be worth it. Professional success, a happy marriage, well-raised children, a fit body, travel, a solid career, and, of course, purpose. It's as if life were a goal tracking app sending notifications that you're running late on achieving fulfillment. But Montaigne would say, why all the desperation? In the end, everyone ends up the same way, lying down, quiet, and you know, that awareness works wonders. You start spending less time with energy vampires, worrying less about what others think, taking more risks, laughing more, and maybe, just maybe, living more authentically. Because when time becomes a scarce commodity, you stop investing in frivolity. So, if everything seems out of control, that's great. That is the only universal truth. Everything is unstable, fleeting, and uncertain. Only death is guaranteed. And if that scares you, take a breath. The idea here isn't to live in fear. It's to live with urgency, with presence, and with a healthy dose of... Because the clock is ticking and death is never late. The luxury of being yourself. The luxury of being yourself in an age of human copycats, in an age of human copies. Being yourself these days is almost a revolutionary act, like walking naked through the mall, only less scandalous and more courageous. Because in a world where everyone wants to be asterisk someone asterisk, the influencer, the life coach, the conceptual artist, the successful entrepreneur with the porcelain smile, being just you, raw, imperfect, and unedited, is almost offensive. Montaigne was one of the first guys in history to say it out loud. I am contradictory, imperfect, a bit fearful, a little lazy, and that's okay. Instead of pretending to be an enlightened sage, he opened up his existential diary and wrote about flatulence, the fear of death, personal crises, and all the things we'd hide today behind motivational stories and 2x speed WhatsApp voice notes. And that's where he puts everyone else to shame. The guy was real in a time when being real could literally get you burned at the stake. And yet today, with the internet, freedom, and access to everything, you still live trying to fit into a mold made to please an audience that isn't even really paying attention. Everyone is replicating behaviors, lifestyles, language, even hobbies. Suddenly everyone is an introvert with an artist's soul, a hardcore entrepreneur, or a spiritual type with a biting sense of humor. It's all a rehearsal to appear spontaneous. And the question Montaigne would ask is simple. Are you living, or are you performing? Does being yourself require courage? Not the courage to face a dragon, but the courage to say, "This is me," to endure the side eye from those who expected something else, to fail publicly without becoming a meme, to be inconsistent at times without apologizing on Twitter or Instagram trends. Courage to not follow fads even if it costs you approval. Here's another example. People who change their minds in a polarized world. Anyone who changes their mind gets called a fence sitter. But he changed his opinion all the time, because he thought, he doubted, he tested ideas. And while today that's seen as weakness, to him, it was intelligence. Being yourself means accepting that you are a process, not a finished product. And you know the irony? The more you try to fit in, the less interesting you become. Because everyone has already seen the generic influencer, the cool nerd, the cool feminist, the disruptive entrepreneur. What no one has seen yet is the real you, with your contradictions, your embarrassments, your ugly laugh, your strange tastes. That's what the world is missing. Real people, not well-edited characters. So the next time you feel the urge to copy someone's mannerisms, someone's captions, or someone's style, remember this. Those who live by imitation die generic. And Montaigne lived as he pleased, wrote as he thought, died as he truly was, and was remembered for exactly that. Will you be remembered for an organized feed, or for the courage to be who you are? The luxury of being yourself in an age of human copycats. The porcelain smile and the filtered life on Instagram. Being yourself has become a luxury item that hardly anyone can afford. You know why? Because being yourself requires accepting your own mediocrity in certain areas. And nobody wants to be mediocre. Everyone wants to be high performance. If Montaigne were here, he'd say that this quest for perfection is the most refined form of torture. The guy wrote about his own hemorrhoids, about preferring one wine over another, and about his memory lapses. He couldn't care less about appearing like an untouchable genius. He wanted to be a real human being. And the reality is that you are a tangle of contradictions. You want to be healthy, but you want to eat pizza. You want to be productive, but you want to binge watch a series. And guess what? That's okay. Luxury isn't having a perfect life. It's having the freedom not to have to pretend that you do. While everyone else wastes energy trying to be a shoddy copy of some guru, you win the game simply by being the original, bugs, system glitches, and all. The tyranny of compulsory happiness. You know what really takes up permanent residence in your head? The obligation to be okay all the time. That toxic positivity that feels like a never-ending margarine commercial. Gratitude, focus, strength, and faith. Smile, you're on camera. Man, if you're sad, be sad. If you're angry, feel that anger. Montaigne realized that trying to suppress negative emotions only makes them stronger. It's like trying to hold a ball underwater. Eventually, it's going to pop up and smack you in the nose. He believed that true wisdom isn't avoiding pain, but learning to live with it without letting it become your only script. Nowadays, we feel guilty for not being happy. Man, I have everything. Why do I feel this way? Then you get caught in a loop of suffering over the fact that you're suffering. Montaigne would give you a reality check. You feel this way because you're human, and humans fluctuate. Accepting that life has gray days isn't pessimism, it's realism. It means stopping the fight against the clouds and learning to walk in the rain without making a scene. The pleasure of having no opinion. We live in the era of, I think. Everyone is expected to have a firm opinion on the war in Country X, the new economic policy, or the cancellation of the week's celebrity. And if you say, I don't know, you come across as an alien or an ignoramus. But here's a liberating secret. You don't need to have an opinion on anything that doesn't directly impact your life or that you haven't studied deeply. Montaigne had a phrase carved into a beam in his chateau. Asterisk que sais-je, which translates to, what do I know? The answer? Almost nothing. And admitting that is a superpower. When you stop trying to be right about everything, you stop wasting energy on pointless arguments on Twitter or in the family group chat. You reclaim the time you used to lose trying to prove points to people who don't even want to listen. The pleasure of shrugging and saying, I don't have enough data to form an opinion, is the most elegant way to keep your peace of mind intact while the world tears itself apart over likes and dunks. The invitation to ultimate detachment. Ultimately, Montaigne's philosophy isn't about isolating yourself in a tower, but about building a tower inside yourself. A place where the world's noise can't enter without permission. Where other people's opinions are stopped at the door, and where your own madness is welcome to come in for a coffee. Life is too short to live on autopilot, trying to please ghosts or following happiness manuals written by people who don't even know you. The chaos out there will remain. The circus will keep on burning. The difference is that now you know where the emergency exit is. So the next time you feel like you're caring too much about things that don't matter, remember old Montaigne. Take a breath, look at the chaos, give a wry smile, and go back to your wine, your book, or your silence. Because the greatest victory you can achieve in this hysterical world is simply to be the master of your own attention. Suggested closing hook for the video. If you've made it this far, it means the real estate in your head is due for a renovation. Comment free below if you're going to start charging property tax on useless ideas starting today. And don't forget to follow for more doses of unfiltered reality. See you next time.